Hi class, welcome to lesson number 7. Welcome to have you back here. Hopefully you guys are excited for economics. More to come in the future. But last time you covered about the differences between amount demanded and demanded. We talked in detail on how and why a demand graph, demand line or schedule might change. We named about 5 determinants that cause the demand graph to change. And that was actually one of the homework questions, right? So I asked you guys, what are the 5 things that change the demand as such? So here are the answers. First one is the number of consumers. If the number of consumers increase, the demand changes or decreases actually. So if the number of consumers increases, well, the demand goes up, right? Number of consumers goes down, well, the demand will shift to the left. So understand that if the demand gets, increases, right? The demand, not amount demanded, if the demand increases, demand graph shifts to the right, okay? And if the demand goes down, well, then the demand will shift to the left. Does that make sense? Hopefully that's clear. So number of consumers was 1. The other one was the tastes and preferences of consumers, right? I hope you guys remember that tastes and preferences are extremely important. Next was the price of related goods, right? We talked about substitute goods and complementary goods and how that affects it, right? Moving on, it's consumers' income is very important. We talked about inferior and normal goods. In fact, that was one of the questions I asked for Part B. And inferior goods are goods that are cheaper than your normal goods, and inferior goods are consumed more if your income goes down. Normal goods are consumed more if your income goes up. Okay, so that's inferior goods and consumer goods. So we killed those there. And the last one are price expectations. Okay, understand that future price expectations are very important because based on that, the demand by the consumer changes as well. So those are the 5 things, and I went over inferior goods and normal goods. That was the answer to the homework. Moving on, lesson 7, we're gonna go over a couple things. First, I want to talk about 2 basic laws in economics that are extremely important. You already know this intuitively because I've already explained this a couple times, but this is the fancy technical definition so that when you guys see this on a test, you won't be shocked. So I want to start off with the law of demand and law of supply, okay? So let's start off with the first one that we talked about. We said, what is the law of demand? Right? What's the law of demand, right? The law of demand, we've talked about this a lot of times, as it basically states that if you hold everything else constant, right, the thing we've always said before, if you hold all other variables constant, if you increase the price, right, if you increase the price, the quantity demanded decreases, okay? So I'm gonna, let me write that down. Holding all else constant when the price of a good increases, the consumer decreases the quantity demanded. And I'm going to confirm this technical definition. I did for that good. Okay, a lot of words here. What's going on? Well, basically, again, guys, you know this, okay? Because here's how I can easily explain it. it basically says that you as a consumer, okay, if the price goes up, you're going to consume less of that good, right? Why? Because, again, the more expensive something, the less we can afford, right? Not everyone can afford a Ferrari, right? But maybe more like a Toyota, Honda, or a Hyundai, people can afford more of those. Ferraris, not everybody can afford. Why? Because the price of Ferrari is extremely high. The price of a Toyota and a Honda or a Hyundai, they're more affordable, right? So people can afford more of those, right? So what this says is that holding all else constant, again, that Ketter's paribus thing that we talked about, holding all else constant, right? When the price of a good increases, right? The price of a good is going up, right? The consumer demands the consumer decreases the quantity demanded of that good, okay? And this is how the demand schedule is created, right? Because just remembering your X and Y axis, right, where you have your basic price and you have quantity over here. So as my price, right, take this price, okay, over here, as my price goes down, right, the quantity demanded goes up, right? And this is how I have a downward sloping demand schedule, right? The reason I have a downward sloping demand schedule is because as the price rises, right, the quantity demanded goes down. Look at this. My quantity demand is going down, right? As the price is going up, my quantity demand goes down, and this is why the demand graph is downward sloping. And this is the law of demand. And the law of demand is really important. Make sure you understand that in the words. You know, if you have your own definition, that's fine, but understand that this is the reason why the downward sloping demand graph is created, okay? Let's move on to the law of supply. Law of supply is also very important, and if you understand the law of demand, you sort of will probably get the law of supply, okay? What does the law of supply state? Well, the law of supply states that law of supply, correct? Supply, right? Holding all else constant, okay? When the price of a good rises, price of a good rises, the producer, right? Excuse me, yeah. So, excuse me. The supplier or the producer, same thing, right? Supplier, or you can call producer, will increase, okay? A little different from the last one, right? Will increase. The supplier or the producer will increase the quantity supplied of that good. Quantity supplied of that good. Right? What does this mean? Well, it basically says that if I have a axis with like your price and quantity, right? As my price increases, right? So look at this, my price increases. The quantity supplied, right, also increases, which is why you have a positively sloped supply line, right? This is your supply, right? So as my price increases, the producer, right? We talked about the consumer in the law of demand. In the law of supply, we talk about the supplier, the producer. The supplier is willing to produce more, right? So he is going to produce, the quantity supplied is going to increase as the price increases, or vice versa. Why is that? Okay, because understand that we talked about something called marginal costs, right? You guys remember in the foundational class we talked about marginal costs, correct? Understand that as you produce more goods, right? As you increase the number of goods that you produce, right? Your marginal costs are going to increase. Okay? So as my marginal costs, MC stands for marginal costs, increase, this is why it costs more and more for that producer to increase the quantity supplied. So he needs that price to be higher to produce more, right? Not only that, the second part of that is that as your prices increase, right, the profits that you make on that particular good, depending on the cost, of course, it generally tend to increase, okay? So which is why it's really important to understand that as my prices go up, me as a producer, if I am making cars, right, and people are paying more for cars, well, I'm going to produce more cars because one, I can cover these marginal costs, right, and two, I make more profits, right? So that's why the supply line is positively sloped, because of the law of supply. The law of demand, right, creates a downward sloping demand line. Law of supply creates a positively sloped supply line. Okay, guys? This is really important. Law of demand and law of supply are something that you need to know about. All right? So I'm going to now move on to a new topic, right? And in the new topic, what I'm going to do is, before I jump into how we shift supply curves and why we shift supply, I really want to talk about, go back to a chapter that we briefly discussed a little bit. It was called absolute versus relative prices. And I want to explain a little bit more about that, because I think I was a little vague on that. And so I want to explain to you guys in more detail about absolute and relative prices, right? And this is a cool part because I get to test you guys a little bit on what you've learned, right? So absolute versus relative pricing, okay? What did we say about absolute and relative prices? All right. For those of you who remember, right, we said absolute prices are the prices that are stated, right? They're already given to us, right? And there's nothing that you compare to. So these are the stated prices, right? Stated prices, correct? And we said relative prices are the prices that we compare to other prices offered by another firm or another consumer. So it really depends the way you look at this, right? So in relative prices, we compare. The definition today, reason I'm going back to this is I want to talk about absolute and relative prices from the view of a consumer, okay? And the reason why I'm talking about this is that it helps you understand a little bit more about why a consumer purchases certain good versus another, okay? So in absolute prices, okay, let's say this is a view of a consumer. So this is how a consumer will think, okay? So let's say that in our example, that a gallon of milk or a liter of milk, depends where you live in the world, right? In the US, we go by gallon, other parts go by liters, right? Just depends where you are, right? So let's say a liter, okay, or a gallon, right? I'm going to go with gallon, but you can surely put liter if you want, okay? Let's say a gallon of milk, 1 gallon of milk, right, is equal to $3, okay? Is equal to $3, all right? This is the absolute price, okay? That's the absolute price. $3 is the absolute price. That's how much I pay for the gallon of milk. What's the relative price? The relative price asks how much, okay, so the relative price, right? The relative price asks, there are two things. One, using this $3, what other goods can I buy, right? What other goods can I buy? Okay, so using this $3, how far will this $3 go for other goods, right? So I got a gallon of milk here. Well, can I get other things, right? So you can compare goods like that using relative prices. Or the other way of relative prices is, how much of my income is this $3 knocking off, right? So how much of my income is gone, or absorbed, whatever you want to say, is gone because of this $3, right? Okay? So this is what relative price asks, and this is what absolute prices ask. Why is this really important, and why, Venkat, are you going back right now to this? What I want to talk about today is income effect versus substitution effect. And to understand income effect and substitution effect, you have to understand relative pricing, okay? Because it really gives you a better idea of why people consume substitute goods or they consume less of a particular good, right? So my next topic I'm going to cover is substitution effect and income effect, okay? So for this, I really want to use, and this is still in a view of a consumer, the way I'm going to do this is that I'm going to give you guys an example, okay? And in my example, right, I have regular milk, okay? Regular milk, right? Plain old white milk. And then I have chocolate milk, okay? For those of you who don't like chocolate, I'm sorry. I love chocolate. Chocolate milk, okay? So the price of, this is today, okay? And this is going to be the future. Okay? The price today of regular milk, let's say that it is $1. Okay? And let's say chocolate milk today costs 4 times that. It's $4. Okay? But let's say in the future, the price of regular milk becomes $4. And chocolate milk still stays the same at $4. The one other information I want to give you guys is how much do I make? Well, let's say, just for our example's sake, you make about $10, right? So income, and the income of today and the future doesn't change, guys, in my example, okay? That's really important to understand. Income here is $10, right? Here is $10, okay? Future. So in relative pricing, you ask yourself, how much of this good can I buy in that good, right? So the way you put it is in terms of relative pricing, right? Relative price, right? You say today, right? Again, this is today, and this is the future. Okay, I'm going to ask myself, using this $1 from regular milk, how much of chocolate milk can I buy? Okay, so how much do you guys think can buy today using, so if I spend $1 on regular milk, how much of chocolate milk can I go? Well, what you do is you take the price of the regular milk and divide it by the chocolate milk, right? So you can buy 1 divided by 4 of chocolate milk. So for the price of a regular gallon of regular milk, I can buy 1/4 of chocolate milk today, okay? 1/4 of a gallon of chocolate milk. Let's see, using $4, which is the cost of chocolate milk, how much of regular milk can I get? Well, it is 4/1, just to play this. So I can buy 4 gallons of regular milk. Let's see this in the future because the prices have changed, remember? So for regular milk, it's 4/4, which is 1 chocolate milk. And chocolate milk is 4/4, right, which is 1 regular milk, right? So look at this, guys, how it changes. Today, I could, with the price of 1 regular milk, I could only get 1/4 of a chocolate milk. But for a price of the chocolate milk, I can get 4 regular milk, right? In the future, it kind of evens out, right? And the way I'm going to nail this is that I'm going to show you guys the portion of income, right? So this title is called portion of income. Portion of income. Okay? The portion of my income today, right? As in T is for today. How much is regular milk? Regular milk is taking up $1 out of $10, right? So regular milk, our milk, okay, is taking up 1/10 of my salary. Let's look at for chocolate milk. Chocolate milk is taking 4 out of 10, right? So C milk, chocolate milk, is taking up 4 out of 10, right? 4 out of 10, right? Now look at the future, right? I'm going to come over here, right? Look at the portion of income. In the future, my regular milk is taking up 4 out of 10, and my chocolate milk, which hasn't changed, is taking 4 out of 10 as well. You see the difference? Today, my regular milk only takes 1/10 of a portion, but in the future, it's 4 times as expensive. It's 4/10 of my income, right? So understand the big difference. All right, so now using this concept, I'm going to explain to you guys the income effect and the substitution effect. All right, so let's go over there, and I'm going to discuss the income effect and substitution effect. Let's start off with substitution effect, okay? So substitution effect. Okay, the substitution effect, it's defined as the change, right? This delta, guys, means change, okay? The change in quantity demanded, and I've written QD as quantity demanded. The change in quantity demanded, okay, resulting from a change in the, okay, price of one good. And here's the most important part, and this is why I went over relative prices, right? Relative to the price of other goods. Relative, very important, to the price of other goods. Okay, what does this mean? Let's use my example that I have to the right. Okay? So we just defined the substitution effect, right? So we said, what is substitution effect? Well, we said that it's a change in the quantity demand resulting from a change in the price of one good relative to the price of other goods. So we used an example, right? We said, well, we had regular milk, right, which is the good that we had, and then we had another good, which is relative to it. We said the price of chocolate milk. So I'm going to go over here, okay, and I want you guys to look at it. So the price of regular milk today is $1. Price of chocolate milk today is $4. Correct? In the future, the regular milk has become 4 times more expensive at $4, but chocolate milk has stayed the same at $4. What does this mean? The price of one good, right, which is regular milk, right, has increased relative to the price of chocolate milk. Does everyone see that? Price of chocolate milk went from 4 to 4. Price of regular milk went from 1 to 4. So relative to the price of chocolate milk, regular milk has become more expensive. So what does the substitution effect say? Substitution effect basically says that because of the change in the price of the regular milk has become more expensive, okay, relative to the price of chocolate milk, right? So what that basically says is that, I'm going to write it down. In our example, denoted by EX, the price of regular milk is more expensive, is relatively, okay, important, relatively more expensive when compared with what? Chocolate milk, right? With chocolate milk. Does that make sense, everyone? What we've done is we've compared regular milk to chocolate milk, and chocolate milk has stayed the same, regular milk has become more expensive, so regular milk relative to chocolate milk is now more expensive, right? And how do we translate this to consumer demands? Or basically what it says is, because regular milk has become more expensive than chocolate milk, people are now going to consume more chocolate milk when relative to regular milk, right? Because chocolate milk has stayed the same and regular milk has become more expensive. So people are going to consume less of regular milk relative to chocolate milk because the prices have changed, okay? Very important people understand that. The other effect we want to talk about is income effect, okay? And income effect, I'm going to go over here, okay? I'm going to go ahead and erase this and talk about income effect, right? I'll draw this little box for myself for the area for income effect, okay? So income effect basically says that income effect, right? What does income effect say? Income effect states that the change in the quantity demanded results from the change, okay, so the change in the quantity demanded, denoted by QD, okay? The change in the quantity demanded resulting from the change in the purchasing power, okay? And I'm going to explain this real quick. Purchasing power. Okay, so what are they saying? Well, here's the deal. Our income stayed the same, right? Our income stayed from $10 to $10. It didn't change, right? But milk, right, regular milk became more expensive. It went from 1 to 4, right? So relatively speaking, our purchasing power, okay, for regular milk has gone down. Does everyone see that? I'm going to say that again. Before, regular milk only took up 1/10 of our income. Now it takes 4/10 of our income. So relatively speaking, our purchasing power for regular milk has gone down. As a result, the amount of quantity demanded, right, for our good regular milk is going to go down. So the income effect talks about how income, right, affects the quantity demanded of that good. And because our income everything's relative, guys. That's why I explain relative pricing so much. Because our income has gone down, right, we can't afford as much of regular milk anymore because regular milk has become more expensive. The purchasing power of our regular milk has gone down. All right. So in recap, we've talked about relative prices. We've talked about absolute prices. We've talked about law of demand, law of supply. Okay. We talked about the income effect, substitution effect. All right. So here's my question for the day before I let you guys go. The homework question is, what is a law of demand and what is a law of supply? Okay? Explain to me how those create a positively sloped or negatively sloped demand graph. Okay? So which one should you use, law of demand or law of supply for the demand, and why is the demand negatively or positively sloped? Okay? If you get those answers, law of demand, law of supply, why is my demand graph positively or negatively sloped? That'd be your answer for the next lesson. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next lesson. See you guys soon. Thank you.